Welcome to our first of our explanation series of videos, which we're going to be looking at how we get that optimal starting point right in all of our lessons. So the first thing to ask yourself is, how do you actually start your lesson? And this might seem like a strange thing to ask, but it's going to be critical to how this lesson then proceeds. What we need to think about is what's going to happen in those critical first few moments that the students come in, they sit down, and then the learning begins. What does that look like? And what I'm going to propose to you is actually one of the best ways to begin a lesson is through this process that we refer to as activating their prior knowledge. In virtually every topic, they will have some form of prior knowledge or prior skill in that area. Sometimes it's going to be incredibly closely linked, so they may well have done a simpler version of that lower down the school that we can then draw upon that knowledge. Or it might be that there's another topic that they've done where there's some degree of overlap. Maybe not huge amounts, maybe it's just certain terms that come through, but there's always going to be this little link that we can make to something else. And activating that in their minds at that very important first few moments of your lesson is going to make your whole lesson more successful in the long run. Why? Why am I saying that? Well, first of all, what we're going to find is that if we're able to actually ascertain what level their prior knowledge is at, firstly, we're not going to go over wasting that all-important lesson time teaching them something that actually they already know. Why would we do that? There's a couple of things that we could then fall into a trap of if we're just going to go in and think, you know what, I don't need to know if they know anything or not. I'm just going to teach this lesson because I've taught this lesson this way for the past 30 years. Don't do that. Number one, you're wasting time. That time could be better spent on potentially more tricky concepts that they need the time to really focus on to master. Secondly, if we go in and keep trying to teach them things that they already know, they get bored. You are no doubt sitting there thinking in some CPD sessions that you have attended in your teaching career, I've already done this, why are they telling me this? And then you start doing things like counting tiles on the ceiling, counting bricks, looking around the room, playing on your phones, whatever it may be. The boredom has set in, we've lost you. Same thing with the students. If we try to teach them the same things over and over again when they already understand it, they are going to shut off from our teaching. We don't want that. Secondly, it's also going to help them to do this thing that they struggle with, to make these links between different areas of the curriculum that we are teaching. Maybe in the same subject, maybe in separate subjects. They are terrible at being able to make these links. Great at knowing a random fact. Can they link that to a different lesson they did a few weeks ago? Not always. So if we're actually able to activate that prior knowledge that they already have on this related topic, then we're able to make those links explicit to them. Their minds will then start to make those connections, which means they will be able to access those higher level answers by tying in a greater element of factors to it. What we're talking about then is finding that sweet spot. Obviously, not going to be going back over things that they already know or can do, but not skipping over things that they can't do or they don't know. So how can we go about doing this? How do we find this magical sweet spot that is going to be activating their learning and getting them primed for our lessons so they're all going to be absolutely brilliant throughout that class? It can be something incredibly simple. We're not talking about incredibly in-depth things that you need to be able to do here. It could be something as easy as write down everything you know on topic X. Once they've written it down, you could be circulating around the room. You could get them to do it on the mini whiteboards and hold it up. You could obviously get them to verbally contribute their answers at the end. But when you've done that task, as simple as write down everything you know, then we're going to be able to get three key things from that. Firstly, what do they know? That's the stuff that we can then avoid teaching again. If you're looking at that whole class of mini whiteboards looking at you and going, oh look, everyone's got that same point on there, don't teach it again. They've got it. It's a waste of your time. Secondly, we will be able to spot what they don't know. anything that is missing from this, that's where we need to focus our teaching. That's where we need to fine-tune our lessons to get those facts across or those skills across. And the third one, the one we might overlook at times, is what misconceptions they already have. So obviously, if they've got misconceptions around a topic you're about to teach, unless we do something about them and address those misconceptions, they're going to keep them. And worst, they're going to write them on an exam paper in the future. So identifying those misconceptions at this early stage means we can then build in something to address them and hopefully correct them before it gets to any exam point. So last thing I want to talk to you about then are some of these strategies that you can actually use, the practical bit of this video. So it's quite straightforward on how we can actually do this. Something as basic as literally putting a few questions up that they're going to do as a quick recall quiz. So this could just literally be 3 questions that are based around maybe the previous lesson, or it could go back further. Maybe this was a topic they did back in year 7 and they're now in year 10. It can drop back to that. Just very quick little questions just to work out what they know, what they don't know, and any misconceptions that they've got. And as I say, this could be done either written in their books, they could do it on mini whiteboards so that then you get a nice view of the whole class when they hold them all up. But it's a quick activity at the beginning just to get that measure of where you really need to start this lesson. Second idea is that you could actually ask the students to create some questions on those areas that they don't understand. So you could get obviously all the students to write down maybe 2 questions, or if you're feeling like you don't want that many, just the 1 question each on something they didn't understand. And then range of ways that you could do this. Obviously you could look at all the mini whiteboards if they've done it on mini whiteboards. You could collect them in and then just select random ones, or you could just select a few students at that time to then ask their question. What you can then do is answer them. So at that point we're identifying bits they don't understand, and hopefully we're able to go back and build on that prior knowledge to get them that initial understanding before we then try to move them on from that point. The third one is if you've got a group where there's a lot of kids that don't like to participate a lot of the time, a lot of shy ones maybe, then you could actually think, I'm going to put them into groups and I'm going to have a key questioner in that group. Pick someone who's confident, who doesn't mind saying if they don't get something. Don't pick that kid that goes rabbit in the headlights when you ask them something to speak out. And then that designated questioner will be the one that vocalises any concerns or confusion within that group throughout whatever activity it is that you are doing. So they are going to be the ones that go, no, sorry, don't get that, miss, or sir, could you explain that again because that didn't make sense. So 3 little tips there that you can have a go in terms of strategies to try in your classroom, but the key takeaway from this video is working out what our students already know before you just launch into teaching a lesson where they might already know half of it. So find that sweet spot so that you can then make the most of that lesson time.